Chum. For those that don't know me, I am the school resource officer here at the middle school. This is my third year working for the school district here at the middle school. Prior to this, I retired from the Essex County Prosecutor's Office as a detective. I was there for 21 years, and prior to that, I was a police officer in New York where I grew up, and I was able to transfer my time over here, so I could do about 25 years complete in New Jersey. While I was with the prosecutor's office, I was assigned to various units, CSI, narcotics, homicide, and the last 8 years of my career, my most rewarding assignment was the Special Victims Unit. For those that don't know, Special Victims Unit, we handle all sex crimes cases, child abuse cases. And while I was with the Sex Crimes Unit, I was also privileged to be assigned to a task force called the Internet Crimes Against Children. It's a national task force, and each state has an affiliate assigned to the task force. And in most states, I believe the state police run the task force. Here in New Jersey, the New Jersey State Police run it, and all the counties and the municipalities have members assigned to the task force. So I was the detective assigned with the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, assigned to the task force. And basically the type of case that we handled were child sex exploitation cases on the internet. I don't know if you remember those shows, kind of dating myself, that show To Catch a Predator with Dave Hansen. So those type of investigations we did. I posed as an undercover 11 and 12-year-old girl. I'm sure you've seen on the news all these things that we've done. First one was in Tom's River, I think it was like 2018. We locked up 25 people in 5 days, including a police officer, a sergeant from Howell PD. He thought he was going to come and meet and have sex with a 15-year-old. Turns out that 15-year-old was a detective from Martin County Prosecutor's Office, recognized his picture when he sent the picture to me. And the other type of cases we handle is a lot of child pornography cases. CSAM, child sexual abuse material cases where people download and share on the internet. When we were growing up, we didn't have this device. I'm pretty sure, I think we're all about all the same age. We all grew up in the 80s, early 90s and stuff. Once this came about and the internet came about, these pedophiles and child predators, it was easier for them to get access to our children, right? Through the internet, through the apps. And that's why this task force was created, to combat these individuals to get them off the street. So today, basically what we're going to do is, what we've been trying to do is let the parents know what's going on, because I'm sure your kids don't tell you everything that goes on your phone, or on their phone. And we're going to try to give you some safety tips on what to look out for, and have conversations with your children. That's the key that I think during my career, working Special Victims and ICAT Task Force, when I talk to parents, when I bring them in after I track the IP address to their homes, and hey, this is what your kid is doing on the phone, they have no idea. Okay, so that's something that we're going to touch on. And throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of new stuff for you guys, but it's very important stuff. And then right after this presentation, I don't know if you got the email, we're going to be doing the e-bike presentation. That's going to be done through my chief and the captain lieutenant. There's a big problem with e-bikes right now. Kids getting killed, unfortunately, recently, both in Union County. So, and we see a lot of e-bikes here in this town, in the borough. Our kids in middle school operating e-bikes. And I see them, I have to yell at half of them all the time, driving like maniacs on campus. So, I'm going to introduce you to Justin Talone. He's the assistant prosecutor with the ICAT Task Force with the Morris County Prosecutor's Office.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. My name again is Justin Talone. I'm the assistant prosecutor at the Morris County Prosecutor's Office. I am the assistant prosecutor assigned to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. My information is up there as well, so if you guys ever have any questions, please reach out. I've been at the prosecutor's office now for over 13 years. I've spent probably about 5 or 6 years either in sex crimes, child endangerment, magazine law, and now my main focus again is the Internet Crimes Against Children. So you guys know just a little bit more about me. I have 2 kids of my own. They're a little bit younger, right? They're 3 and 5. So I have the same concerns that you guys have. They don't have phones yet, thank God, and maybe like an iPad, but I kind of restrict those as well. So again, please ask questions during this. We're going to go over a lot of different things, but one of my questions to you is, how many people's children have cell phones right now? Right? Pretty much everybody, right? How many of you check that phone every night to see what's on it? Right. It's very common. Nothing to you. This happens a lot. So we're going to go through a lot of different subjects on this, and at this age range now I heard this actually, 5th grade is here, so you have 9, 10-year-olds up to 13, 14-year-olds up here. This is a very important age group. One, as you know, there's a lot of changes, a lot of other issues you're dealing with, but for what we deal with, this is unfortunately the prime age group for especially online predators, other internet safety issues as well. So my goal here is to try to go through these and give you kind of an idea of what we do in the office. So what we do as a prosecutor's office is try to keep our children in this county safe. We're also going to go through a few of the easier things first, simple stuff like online privacy, cyberbullying, which everyone kind of has, I'm sure, experience with as well. Finding inappropriate content online too, right? What do you do in those situations? And then we'll get into some of the harder topics and stuff that we deal with, obviously on a bigger scale, which is like such as sexting, sextortion, online sexual solicitation. And I'm going to try my best to try to give you some ideas of how to prevent these, what you can do to be proactive and reactive in these types of situations. So what does ICAC mean? Like we said before, it's Internet Crimes Against Children. We don't do financial crimes. We do some stuff with like scams, if it's trying to extort money out of kids for pictures, that kind of stuff. But what we really deal with is crimes that are occurring against children. Like the officer said before, a lot of the stuff we deal with is child pornography. The term we use now is child sex abuse material. It's a better term because pornography has been sometimes used as a way to almost justify it as something different, right? But we call it what it is now, child sex abuse material. So I'll go through a little bit of what we've been doing. Our unit, when I was first in sex crimes, I think in 2016, we had ICAC cases that would come in, but it was here and there. Now we have our own dedicated unit to it. And that's something we built up over the last few years, where we have 3 assigned detectives to it, and we have 5 task force officers. So task force officers are officers from local towns who assist on these types of investigations. So we, again, have 3 full-time detectives in our unit, or in our office, just working on internet crimes against children, where 8, 9 years ago, it was, again, sporadic ones that we were doing. That's how much has changed even over the last 10 years or so. So what does ICAC do? What do we do? A lot of what we do comes from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's called NECMEC, all right? And they produce these things called cyber tips. So whenever you're use a provider, let's say it's Google, Facebook, Snapchat, you name it, there's federal law that says they have to report any sort of child pornography, CSAM, other child abuse content, anything that's missing children, anything like that. So this actually was a not-for-profit clearinghouse that would funnel all of these types of tips from people. Even people on the street can, put in tips, right? Congress saw the need for this, and they started working on it, and that's what happened. So since 1984, they've been working on these tips, and obviously in the past 10, 15 years, they've gotten more and more tips, and we'll go over through some of those things. So what is a cyber tip? It's public or electronic service providers can make reports of suspected online enticement of children. And again, this can be from Google, Snap, Discord. All these places are supposed to be reporting these things by law, and they have to. So we get these tips. There's different priority levels to determine what type of offense this could be, right? Is this a child who's being abused right now? Is something that's imminent? Or is it someone who's sharing child pornography or CSAM, right? That gets reported to the New Jersey State Police through that task force, and they filter it down to the appropriate county depending on where it's coming from. A lot of times that comes off of their IP address or where they're located. And at that point, our detectives go through those and go through the investigation and see what we can do. We do search warrants. We do the most search warrants of any unit in our office, and that's very unfortunate because, again, 10 years ago, it probably wasn't that much.
When I was working for the last 8 years, I was doing one search warrant a month, easily. Some I could have gotten two, but, you know, depending on the caseload, I was busy with one case alone, just tracking somebody down. And the number of images per search warrant I would find is somewhere between 10,000 to 100, over 100,000 images of CSAM. And every single one of those I have to review it to make sure that in order to charge, because it's based on the charging, it's based on the number of files the person has, possession of it. So we have to sit there and count every single one. I have to look at every single one of them. So unfortunately, I've seen hundreds of thousands of videos and images of children getting abused online, on video and on photos. And not everybody can do it. And
No.
a lot of detectives, I could be a homicide detective, can't handle something like this. The first time I was asked to do it, I wasn't sure what I was getting into. And I have kids myself, they're older, one's a freshman in college and the other was a junior, but they were younger when I first got into it. And I said, this is somebody's children, so somebody has to do this. And I know, you know, when I was in task force, I had senior guys in other states that has been doing this for 20-some years. I said, how do you guys do this for 20+ years without having PTSD? And he said, Tyler, what you got to do is when you look at the image, don't look at it as a human being, you have to look at it as a case. You have to disassociate, you have to disconnect, because if you attach emotion to it, that's where you're going to get that PTSD thing. So to this day, I can sleep well, no problem. I don't have any bad nightmares of any images I've looked at or videos I've watched.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Like, we've probably seen some of the just horrible things, and even the stories from kids who've been abused as well. It's really, it takes a special type of person, I think, to actually work in those units, and we have resiliency stuff that we do. We have things we try to work on, but there's certain detectives or other assistant prosecutors who, you know, they're like, I'd rather go work in homicide, right? Major crimes, and then deal with that, because it's stuff that they don't want to be exposed to. Even when they told me I was going over to a unit, my first assistant goes, hey, we want you to work on this. I go, that's great. I mean, it's hard, but it's great, you know, because this is something I want to do, because it's important, because these are real children at the end of the day, and we have to try to do our best to protect them. Somebody's got to be able to do those things.
And before I started doing ICAT, you know, I was doing sex crimes, and in the state of New Jersey, if you want to interview any children under the age of 12, you have to have a certain type of training called finding words. It's a certain technique that we speak to children at that age. And the youngest, not my first one, but my youngest child that I actually physically interviewed that was sexually abused by a family member, I believe she was 7 or 8 years old. Okay? And I'm sitting across the room, and this little girl's looking at a complete stranger, and have to tell me everything, what happened to her body, to a complete stranger, and get it disclosed so we charge the individual. It's tough, but like I said, we basically, it's somebody's child, we have our own child. It's a passion that I have. That's why I ended up coming to the middle school, working at the middle school, because this is the age range that I know how to talk to kids and how to get information and how to help them. When I got interviewed for the job, based on my training, my chief's like, you went right to the middle school. So
yeah, it's very difficult, and that's, you know, a lot of the stuff when we have victims who like actually live in county, right, who are being abused, right, we have to, you know, speak to them and deal with them, and you're trying to go through that. And I've talked to so many of those families and those kids, right? As young as, I think the youngest I've ever had was 4. So it's very difficult. So what NECMEC does is they are an amazing resource, and it's definitely a website to go check out. There's a lot of good resources on there for parents. They have a lot of the data and stuff too. This is, you know, a few years old, but in the reports that they can generate, people being solicited online, 78% of them are girls, 13% boys. The people who are enticing those children, 82% male, 9% female who are the offenders, right? And we're going to get into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to show you some of these statistics. Now, in 2023, reports made by Cybertech wrote 12% from the year before, 36.2 million reports. It was over 100 million data files. Online enticement has increased by more than 300% from 2021 to 2023. They have, again, the list of the types of stuff that they do, such things as sex trafficking, unsolicited obscene material sent to a child. And one of the things you'll see here, I think that's right, where was it? Online enticement for sexual acts. These are the ones that start going up and up and up that we keep seeing more. Reports made by the public, and again, we have a lot of those that come in from the corporation and businesses that have to do it. They try to find ways around it, of course. If you ever notice anything that's encrypted, if something's encrypted, they don't have to report it. So when they start promoting these things of, hey, it's great privacy, well, guess what? They're doing that so they don't have to scan this stuff for child abuse and other illegal activities. So a couple of things before we get into some of the harder, heavier stuff. We'll talk a little bit about online privacy, all right? Because this is big. Passwords, home addresses. Take a minute and try to think about how many times a day do you post something or share something, right? Is it 12 times a day or 12 times a month? How many times are you, again, putting out locations? How often is your kid using or sharing locations and putting things on the internet, or how often are they getting content? I think a lot of people have seen, oh my God, that scam for DMV. You haven't, there's like text messages. I was, funny enough, I was going to go renew my license. Not that it was expired or anything, right? I'm a prosecutor, never had that happen. But they told me this, and then even me, for a second, I go, oh my God, I have to pay this. And then I go, wait a second. I know this is probably a scam, and it was, of course, right? So we have to be very careful about what we're sharing on the internet. And it's not that you should never share information, right? We have friends we want to share with. We have to be cautious about what you're sharing, because not only is it what your children are sharing too, because a lot of these predators online can use that information to try to track down and find out where you're working from, right, or where you're living. And we've all done that thing where you're trying to find, somebody, try and find more information about somebody, right? Your sister's new boyfriend or something like that, right? So what do? You go on Google, you Google it, you go on Facebook, you go on Snap, you try to find the name, you find this, you find all this information, right? We all do it. There's no difference between that and a sex offender who's going to be doing the same thing, right? And it's hard to keep your information off of there. We probably lived in a time that was a little bit different, where all the stuff from when we were kids is not online, thank God. But again, it's stuff that we have to be cautious about, because there's like incidents. There was a 14-year-old English girl who posted details about her birthday party online and had it crashed by 800 people who showed up there causing all this damage, right? Because these things can go viral online. Let's do these things, right? I have other examples where, actually I had one at home, where my wife got a phone call from Wells Fargo, right? Hey, someone tried to buy a $3,500 laptop in Pennsylvania. Is that you? No, it's not. Oh, okay, don't worry, we're going to send you a new card. We start going into it, and it sounded legitimate. She had it on speaker, and then when they started asking for, like PayPal. Oh, you need to send some money to this so we can do this. Well, why would I have to do that? So we started messing with them, of course, right? And eventually this guy goes, oh, you fell for it. I was like, did we though? We never sent you money. But these are the scams. But they sounded legitimate up until that point. And they were very good, because they do this over and over and over again. And they sound legitimate, and they know all the words to say because they've heard all the people ask the right questions. I read and said, put your supervisor on. We got hold, there was music, right? It was everything you would expect. And then he confirmed the account, last 4 digits of the account number, sure, okay. And then there's a fake supervisor on there. So again, these are situations that we have to be worried about, not just for you, but also for your kids are posting, right? And that also goes into what we are posting. What we post online is essentially there forever, right? It is the World Wide Web. You can take a picture of something right now, and it can be across the world being shared by everybody. Every picture, every post, every comment is saved in there. And the internet doesn't keep these things private just because you want them to keep it that way. And this goes into what they call cyberbullying. How many businesses will do the same thing, right? They'll look up your name, they'll look up your Snapchat. There's some businesses that say, give us your handles, right? Give us your name so they can go through them to see if there's anything on there that they don't want associated with their company. And for the most part, a lot of these companies can do those things because it's a private company, right? Or it's just a private school. You know, I remember that time before, right? I'm sure most of you do too, where we didn't have to worry about that. I graduated high school in 2002, so we were just getting phones and everything was right at that point, but we didn't have people posting too much online. It was a lot different. So a lot of the things that we had, those pictures that were taken, were then got taken with like a digital camera, and you have to plug it in to go upload that. It's not something that was instant. So you have to worry about, for yourself as well, but also for your kids. In Morris County, there was the example of, oh God, what was his name? I forget his name now. Nate Panta. I have my notes right here. I can't read my own notes. He was going to Cornell for football. He posted a video on Twitter where he's using the N-word, and Cornell said, well, we're pulling that from, right? He ended up going to Baylor University. Last I checked, he's working for a financial company. I just looked up the other day. But these are things that can, wherever your thoughts are about, it can affect what schools you're going to, your scholarships, all these things. And this is stuff you have to talk to your kids about, why it's so important about what they're posting and how they're posting and who's going to be the one posting about those things. Because again, it can have those effects of those. Again, even photos, those sorts of things, everything can go on there, and it can be something that can be traced back to you years later. So cyberbullying. I'm sure every single parent here has dealt with some sort of cyberbullying, right? Whether it's your kid being a victim of it or hearing about a friend that has been cyberbullied. Most of the time our juvenile unit handles that if it's one juvenile to the other, but this is down that prime age range where kids will bully each other. It's posting comments, it's creating hate groups, it's making those memes, it's posting fight videos, gossiping through messaging apps. If your kid was bullied or if you were bullied during school for something, it would stop when you got home at least. But now it doesn't because everything is online. Everyone can snap something, can send a picture to somebody, something embarrassing, can edit the photo to make it more embarrassing for the kid. And listen, the kids are, and especially in this age range, immature, right? They don't understand, they might not be a bully themselves, right? Or like the classic idea of a bully, but they might do something that's like bullying, right? Or is bullying, but then not necessarily what they normally do, but they might feel like it's funny, and then it gets out of hand, right? Or they don't realize it. And this is where they learn about like, hey, that's not a cool thing to do, right? That's not a good thing to do to other people. But this is that time to do it. But the problem is that there's so much on the internet. There's so much ability, so much spread of that. There's so many now a bigger audience for it. It makes it worse for children. The example that I like to give, unfortunately, is Mallory Grossman. She was from Rockaway Township. She was 12 years old, and she was tormented online. She was unfortunately committed suicide. She had fellow students taking pictures of her where she says, you have no friends, when are you going to kill yourself in front of other students. Eventually the family alleges that they were getting texts, ostracizing her from her classmates. The mom saw her grades actually plummet, which is one of those signs, right? Becoming, more closed off, grades plummeting, especially if they're obviously a good student, not interested in activities, right, that they might be doing, that they're really into, change in activities, right, not wanting to go and do certain things. These are all signs of bullying that's probably not being told to you, but that's escalated. The mom in this actually confronted one of the parents about this, right, and said, your child's been bullying mine. And she told her that it was just a joke and not to worry. But I implore you that these matters are serious, right? And just because your kid might be accused of bullying doesn't mean your kid is a bad kid, right? They're not a bad child. They might have done something wrong, and that's because they're children, especially at this age range, right? So if you hear these, someone says, hey, your kid's bullying my kid, or your kid is being bullied, remember though, that these are kids, and this is how we're going to work to rectify this. If we start pushing these things off, then those things are going to continue, and it's another sign to either your child or other kids that, hey, he got away with it, why can't, I guess I'll get away with it, it's not being looked down upon, right? So these are very important things for it. And there's actually, I think, a law later passed called Mallory's Law, which changed the bullying and like the stacks being taken. And there's actually, if certain students, I believe if they don't take certain bullying classes, it ups the fines for the parents. It used to be like 25 bucks, that could be up to $500 if they don't take the class, if they refuse to do it. So it's a fine imposed on there, and that's the legislature trying to take things seriously after like such a young kid was bullied. And she doesn't know at 12 years old that this is just kids being mean, and that they'll probably grow up one day and realize that they didn't mean it. But she doesn't know that at 12, right? We don't know those things, right? Until you're much older, or you realize that it was just something that was wrong. So they don't know these things because they're kids, and that's where you as parents need to at least try to, if you see these signs, try to work on whether it's your kid being the one who's accused of bullying or your kid's being bullied. Make sure that you're standing up to that. So they try to call it the upstander instead of bystander, imparting onto your kids the importance of, if you see somebody else doing it, that's not nice, right? Or these are the words I use for my kids because they're 3 and 5, right? So, like for instance, my son just started kindergarten, and there was a girl, first day of school, she peed her pants. So I told my son, and him and his friend were talking about it because they're 1 grade apart, and they didn't make any jokes or anything. I said, oh, that's so sad, isn't that? Oh, that poor girl, she must have felt embarrassed, right? Trying to report on him very early on that that's not something to laugh at, because someone's feelings are obviously hurt. That kid was probably embarrassed, right? If that happened to you, right? Try to impart those things. You're not going to say that to your 13-year-old, but there's ways you can do those things, right? Oh my God, did you hear this story about that kid or that other one who's being bullied? How, that's not the right thing, because now that kid's going to go through X, Y, and Z. Imparting on them that these things actually have consequences for the people who are there. And a lot of kids will latch on to that fact of being that upstander, that person who's going to stand up for another kid, being almost like a hero. Then sometimes I think being the person who's going to tag along and do those things, right? You can use those kind of lines, right? Don't be a follower, be a leader, right? We always teach our kids those things. So having them be the ones who go and report those things or say those things, right? And you can even say, hey, why don't you report it? You don't have to get in that kid's face and yell at them, but if you report it, then you're doing the right thing. That's showing them good examples about what to do in those situations. So, yeah, please.
If you're going to take anything out of this presentation tonight, you're going to probably hear Justin and I repeat ourselves numerous times, and whatever topic we talk about, it's having a conversation with your children. I think that's a big problem we're having, facing these cases, because parents don't know about it until it's too late. When I call in, parents say, this is what your child is doing online. They're posting private pictures, or they're sending text messages to their friends, their private body parts and this and that. Did you know about it? I had no clue. I think the problem right now, just talking to some parents that, when I was doing this investigation, I almost feel like parents are being their friends, just don't want to upset them and look like a bad parent, but you're not being a bad parent. You're being a parent. For me, when I was teaching my kids at a young age, I'm old school, strict kid, parent. I did my old school. You what? You didn't do this? No TV, no nothing. End of discussion. And my kids, thank God, knock on wood, never got in trouble. But also they surround themselves with good friends that have their parents at the same values I did. It's all about having a conversation. And when you have a conversation, you'd be surprised what they will tell you. If you build that trust, if you don't have a conversation, you're not going to build that trust. About anything, not just about this, schoolwork, anything, right? So have that conversation, especially at this age. This is where they start to test the water. At elementary school, kindergarten, they just got out very innocent. I'm telling you right now, from 6th grade to 8th grade is where they're, and here at the school, this is the line, this is what they do all the time, every day, right? And it's like, okay, am I going to get caught? Am I going to get caught? Am I going to get caught? And they kind of push until they get caught. And now the assistant principal's got to get involved, and we have to figure out the district, call the parents in. So key thing is have a conversation with your children almost every night if you can.
So other things, inappropriate content being seen online, right? So, taking away privacy, so forth. Things like pornography, right? There's a lot of stuff. Ridiculous trends. My kids are now saving 6, 7 at home. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. God Almighty.
I know what that means.
Yeah, I know. And then like my niece, who's like 13, was like, oh, it's a song. And I was like, oh God, right? So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things you see online that are, not great for kids, right? Violence. I think it was 98% of children by the age of 12 are seeing some kind of adult pornography online, right, in some shape or form, right? And so these are conversations, again, to have with them. My neighbor next door, she has a son who's like, he's 12, and when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he saw the video. And I don't know if you've seen that video. It's a horrible video. My mom was like, oh my God, there's a video. Where is it? And I was like, you don't want to see this. And I'm like, I've seen a lot of bad things, and this is not a great thing to see. But he saw it online because it was all over Twitter. It was that quick to come up. So these are things you have to think about with, not just cyberbullying and privacy, but also just the exposure to those things. And again, later on, we're going to go over some things are best ways to try to go through that, including trust. So we'll go through that stuff as well. But again, that exposure to those things, different types of, hate speech, whether it's left or right, it doesn't matter. All those things can really kind of affect us. So, time away from your phone and doing other things, other activities is always very great for them too. So one of the biggest things and things we work on the most is sexting, sextortion. All right. More neck cyber tips. 186,000 reports of online enticement between 2021 and 2023. The enticement reports have jumped 323%. And I just looked up again today. From 2023 to 2025, 192% increase from there. So this is, again, online enticement involves individuals communicating with what they believe is a child to either send them nude pictures, engage in other sexual acts, chatting with a kid about sexual conduct. Those things have jumped immensely. So some more stats for you. Sharing nude content. At least 1 in 6 youth surveyed between 9 and 17 have shared a nude image. 50% of the kids shared didn't care if they knew the recipient in real life. You would think they would send it to somebody, a boyfriend or someone they're interested in, but not necessarily. And I've seen this play out in real life as well. Only 13% gets reported to law enforcement. I need you guys to get those numbers up because that's how we help protect those kids. 60% knew the perpetrator, so sometimes, again, it's that friend at school, someone who's trying to do that, but that other 40% are the ones online. I remember many years ago, right after high school, when we had AOL Instant Messenger, I got a message from a friend of mine, and it was a nude picture of her, and I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then I realized it was not just sent to me, it was sent to 70 other people. It was her ex-boyfriend who took her nudes, plugged in the camera, right? Uploaded it and sent it out to everyone after they broke up. And I remember sitting there going, this is not going to be good, right? I was like, this is going to be something bad. And it is, because it's so much easier now to do those things. Kids are talking on immense different types of messaging apps, GroupMe, Facebook Messenger, Skype, Snap is huge, Telegram, GroupMe, all of these, Discord. This is just a tip. I mean, what we get tips on from NECMEC includes Discord, Kik. Every single platform that you are on usually has some type of direct messaging feature, right? And if they meet on certain ones of these, they'll try to entice them to go off to another one, like Telegram, where it's more encrypted, all right? Because they want to move them off of platforms that might report them to something else, something that's easier to message on. So if you see these type of messaging apps, you have to think about who are they messaging and what's on them.
And usually a lot of these kids at this age, I don't know how many kids are gamers, a lot of them meet these predators on gaming platform, and then they switch them over. Discord, right? They talk on Discord while they're gaming, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. At this age, that's what these kids are playing. And they're meeting them, and the pedophiles and the predators know that. They go on there and entice them, and switch over and get them convinced to switch over to these
Yeah,
chat apps, or
I
even
had-
exchange phone numbers.
I had an 11-year-old who the defendant was here, he was in North Carolina, the 11-year-old who met a friend through a friend, right? So it seems a little bit more, oh, so he kind of knows somebody, but it's a, 35-year-old adult pretending to be a younger kid, or maybe just pretending to, or just acting as a 35-year-old, but they know they can talk to kids, especially Discord, ones like that, any gaming app. So it's very difficult to try to keep up with these things. It's not just text messages like it was, again, 10 years ago. Another thing, so when you send out these pictures, sometimes you might even have a picture where maybe they're not nude at all, right? It's just a picture that you're sending to somebody. There's this thing called generative CSAM, and that has skyrocketed since 2023 because of the use of AI. They'll take a child's face and they'll put it on a nude body, and you can use AI to do that. Now that is a crime. It's actually considered still CSAM because there's a real victim there, but it is an incredible jump in that. So even kids who are not even sharing those nude photos or even provocative ones can now have their picture sent around of them, essentially AI generated to be nude, and that will go around the school, either between kids or adults doing it. Yes?
I know there was an incident, I believe, of that in the high school here. Is
Okay.
there anything you can share about that in terms of like, did you speak with the lower school, did you speak with the high school? How should we be addressing that with our kids? So I believe it was pretty severe.
There are instances of those things. Usually we can't talk too much about investigations, but again, generally, it's one of those things where is your kid telling you? Is it going around? Are we reporting it? Because if we don't know, we don't know about it, right? And we'll do the investigation. We'll try to find out if it's other kids, because if it's juvenile, that's obviously a different type of system, right? If it's an adult, it's going to be handled way differently, almost always punishment. Kids is going to be a little different. So whenever these things happen, we try to address those the best that we can. But again, every investigation is different. We also look out for the interests of the victim too, about how much they, through a type of resolution, right? Do they want to go through trial or something like that, right? Could that potentially re-victimize them or bring more attention to these things? So it's a very difficult balance, especially with younger victims.
Back
Yes.
to the whole Discord Roblox thing.
Yes.
So are those two linked, because I know Discord and I know Roblox, but is the chat feature in Roblox through Discord, or are they taking people off Roblox and getting them into
That's what
Discord?
they, most
I
of the
think
time,
that's-
that's what they're doing. Discord is a chat platform,
Right.
so a lot of times, for some reason, they just love chatting on that platform at this age.
And it's not just games, too.
And it's just, all right, it's not just games, they talk about everything else. A lot of people stream. My kids, when they were younger, especially my oldest one, when he was gaming, he used to stream through YouTube, and then he would have Discord set up to talk to his friends, live stream gaming through YouTube. So at this age, they're not really into like WhatsApp but they're more with the chat app, more like Snapchat or Discord.
But again, it's another easy app that they can download, and if it's a predator, they'll move them over to those things too. So this has consequences for your children, of course. It's anxiety, depression, discipline. There's charges that we do on our side of it, of course. Like if you're asking a kid to produce these things, we're going to get a little bit more into that. Again, there's consequences mentally for your kids, and I see this very unfortunately all the time. This is
I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this.
Sorry, that's very loud. Let me turn that down. This is a video produced, I think it was by, I want to say it was Mac. But this is like an example of what a lot of teenagers go through and how it's used to exploit them. Oh, okay.
I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special.
that's real stuff. It's a dramatization, but, you know, a adult posing as the, you know, handsome high school student to the, you know, middle schooler, right? Or the freshman or whatever it is, a slightly older kid, or a guy who's, again, maybe is 35 or 40 years old. So this is what we call chatting cases, where they're actually chatting with them. We've been trying to be much more proactive in what we do with this. So we have detectives who are specially trained in these chatting, so they pose as younger females, males, whatever it might be, to see who is contacting them. And I'll tell you, they have a very hard time keeping up with this, and that's how sad it is. I had a case once years ago where it was I think she was 11 years old. She was able to get her iPod Touch. It was a few years ago, right? Downloaded some app, put a picture up of herself, and can't really tell how old she was in the picture. Guy started messaging her, hey, how old are you? She said, like 13, right? She's a little bit older than she said she was. And first guy or two was like, okay, see ya, bye, right? As one would expect. And then the messages started coming in from others who said, oh, that's great, how's school today? Right? And this all happened within 20 minutes of her mom cooking dinner. And she was upstairs with this, you know, essentially a phone, right? Because it was an iPod Touch. So these things can sometimes happen very quickly, especially with the younger ages where they don't realize the type of people that are online. So I've seen a large amount, unfortunately, of these conversations, and there's different levels of experience by these guys who are online, right? Some are very, very good at what they do. They know what things to say to kids. Some are still newer to it. But again, some have a great amount of experience, and they know what to say. They know what to say to your kid. They know whether, you know, whatever their thing is, if it's pretending to be, you know, a kid a few years older, or if they're just going to say, hey, I'm 35, and that's what it is. They know they're going to get the right kid at a certain point.
So just, I was one of the undercover chatters experienced, like doing these things. And like you said, first one I did was in Ocean County, where we arrested those 25 individuals in a 5-day period. I literally opened up 3 apps, and I had an undercover photo posing as an 11 or 12-year-old girl at the time. And instantly, they saw my picture. I was just getting private messages left and right. And I would tell them how old I am. I would say, I'm 13 years old or 12 years old. Some would say, bye, you're too young. Others, oh, what are you doing? You know. And then one thing I had to learn is, obviously I'm not a girl. I actually had to have the females tell me, you know, I had like cheat sheet. If they ask me this, how do I answer this? Like, you know, bra size, clothing size, all that. So I had that cheat. They really test you to see if you're a police officer or not. So you have to know this stuff. And, you know, it got to the point where some are really good, some are just morons, right? And you can tell which ones are. Those are the easy ones I could just kind of reel them in and get them. And the one out of hundreds of people I spoke to, the one guy that I finally reeled in was, he drove an hour and a half from Little Egg Harbor Township to Tom's River. He's like 26 years old, thought he was going to have sex with a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So a lot of these apps, so I know like with my kids, I have like this, which I thought was a good enough security feature that they have to ask by permission even if they download that. Is that not enough? Like, is there another way for kids to be downloading some of these apps that can have that feature on?
Yeah, so we'll go through some other proactive stuff that we can talk about a little bit later, but every little thing that you do is another step to help you protect them. So it's good, you know. Kids will always try to find ways around it because they're smart, right? And we're tech savvy than we are sometimes. But, you know, we'll try to go through some things, but every step you take is always great, and we'll go through shortly a little bit of the other thing. But, you know, a lot of things we deal with is, now this is, a lot of times they ask for pictures. So it's manufacturing, right, producing CSAM. Again, they reel them in trying to say that they're nice and everything else, and then they use that against them. They'll also ask them, you know, certain things about, you know, touching themselves, all these things, and these are all more and more charges that we can build up. But again, it's a situation that gets worse and worse and worse for them. And then such things as luring the child, right? Driving up to have sexual relations with the child. That's another luring offense. All these things are very harsh penalties, of course. But it's stuff that we have to work on. And so, but how does this really begin? I want to show you some of the things that they do so you can kind of try to spot those things if you look at these conversations. Again, any app that you're going to be using, and it's what we use called grooming victim. Now, I've been through a lot of trainings with people much smarter than me. This one actually comes from a bunch of studies that were done, so I stole a bunch of slides from this professor at Cornell, I think it was, so I'm going to be using hers. It starts with victim selection, gaining access, trust development, desensitization to the sexual content, and post-abuse maintenance. All right? So it might be a little hard to read, but the victim selection, right? They look for people that complain about their adults, right? Their parents, those with low self-esteem or lacking confidence. They always look for the easiest targets first, right? And that might be someone who's, as many kids are, they might be in a depressive phase during school. It happens, right? Or a tough time, or their parents are getting divorced, right? Or maybe they're somewhere on the spectrum. They always look for the easiest targets first. They're needy, they're unwanted, or they at least feel those ways. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's not my kid. And that's great, but they're still kids. And you think, it would be naive to think that every kid here, doesn't have something where, they're mad at their parents about something, right? Everyone's going to have that situation, right? So just never want to put this barrier and say, well, that's not my kid, right? Because then you're failing on this first step, right? Because there's always going to be that access to them, and there's always going to be something that they will latch onto. And the good guys, the guys who are experienced, right? They're not good. Who do this know how to find those little cracks and get through those, all right? And that's that first step. So no matter what it is, they're still kids, especially at this age. They're so vulnerable, right? They're not, wise in their years. So this is why you need to be there to help them with that. So gaining access, again, simple. Some of these things, again, are for in-person contact. So it would be like someone in a youth organization, activities along with them, overnight stays, separate the children from peers and family. But this is also separate them from what platform they're on, like we were talking about, Kick, Discord, any of those, Telegram, moving them off from one platform to the other that's more secure for them, right? Those are all things that they try to use. And then they do trust development. They seem nice, charming, likable. They give attention. If they have something to say about the parents, they use that and they exploit that. Or they talk about school. They use these things to their benefit. And I've seen countless times where a person uses this and they gain that trust, and once they get what they want, they sink them in. And then they become someone you never thought, right, as a person. They become somebody who is absolutely horrendous, and they are threatening them and telling them about all these horrible things they're going to do to them and their family if they say anything, and then demand more photos or pictures or more acts to be done. So, they know, a lot of these guys know what they're doing, and they go through those things, or send them gifts, or send them money, to buy them something on Roblox, right, so they can use those things. All these things make them feel somewhat secure, and this is like, hey, it's not my mom or dad, right? It's somebody cooler or older or whatever it is. So it makes them feel secure. So the desensitization, they'll start asking them questions like the sexual experiences, right? On the younger age, when you're like 11 and 12, they might ask them about like masturbation, and they might go, what do you mean, right? Or what do you mean about this, right? Because the kids really don't know. Or they have some idea, but they've never, seen somebody naked in real life. But they're asking these questions. Now, when they get a little bit older, they might say, oh, like I made out with a boy, and, they say what base they got to or something like that, and that's about it. But then they use that to keep moving on and kind of make the sexual content okay. There's a lot of pictures that they'll send of themselves nude, a lot of times, to try to desensitize them. They'll send them pornography. They're asking if they've ever seen pornography. All of these things to try to get them into talking about this, and then it kind of feels like a secret, and then like, hey, maybe this isn't something I should tell my parents, right? Because it's going into that like sex talk. Oh my God, that's different, right? So they'll go through these things, and they'll go through it, and if it's something that's in person, they'll use non-sexual contact, again, buying gifts, those sorts of things. But once they start getting what they want, whether it's videos, pictures, and then phone sex over there, or live streaming sex, over there, they start that post-abuse behaviors, right? It depends on what character they're trying to play. Some, again, turn very dark. but they're used, much like that video shows, I have something on you. They're blackmailing them in order to, get more of what they want, and it's also a power control, right? Look what I can do with this kid. I can have this. Or something easy access that this kid is always on them. So, and at this point, the thing that I see so many times is that the kids start going deeper and deeper in, and they haven't said anything to their parents. And that's where it gets the most concerning, because it's one of the most damage is now occurring. And they're fearful of, well, I engaged in this. Like, I talked about sex, my God. I'm going to get in trouble. They're fearful of that, but now the problem is, if they didn't report it early enough to a parent or the officer at school, now they're in so deep, they're having their grades drop. They're having all those psychological issues, and so sometimes we've seen that the parent finds it by mistake, right? Or happens to find it, or someone else, a fellow student, did the right thing and reported it. So these things happen, and sometimes then it comes out, and then they feel embarrassed is beyond, can't even describe it, humiliated about what happened and what they, participated in. So that's where it really comes, I think, down to you guys and the proper communication. So this is kind of going to what we were talking about before. Talking to your child about what dangers they could face online is incredibly important. That building of trust is all you have, right? You'll be helping them even if they make a mistake, all right? 54% end up disclosing to a family or friend. Some report on the platform, and only 17% again go towards law enforcement. So you need to have that conversation with them. You need to talk about how having a phone is a privilege. It's trust until it is lost. Again, amount of screen time at night, things that I know a lot of my friends do, they keep their phones downstairs so their parents can go through those, right? And them knowing that, especially from earlier on, right? If you start setting rules when you have a 17-year-old, that might be difficult. But when you have an 11-year-old and they're just getting their phone for the first time, you start setting these rules. They're going to always know that, and guess what? If everyone starts doing that, everybody else's parents are doing the same thing. So establishing those rules, write them down almost as a family contract about this is what we're going to do with the phone. And there's a lot of places you can go that find different ideas of this, explaining those consequences and reviewing those things. So communication here is absolutely key. I did a presentation on to 8th grade students, I think like a year ago, at charter school. So, very smart kids. These are great kids. They all have phones. They're all 8th graders, right? And I did it was like a career day. So I had like 4 or 5 8th grade classes I got to go to. So I asked the questions. So, you guys ever talked? Has anyone creepy ever talked to you online? Well, yeah, of course. Okay. Did you tell your teacher about it? The officer at the school? A parent you can trust? A friend you can trust? And almost no hands went up. And they told me, and again, it's unscientific, but almost everybody there told me it was because they feared the consequences. They didn't want their phone taken away. They didn't want this taken away. But now they're stuck in this realm, especially when you have the younger ones, that are trying to deal with what these interactions are online. So, they fear being in too deep. So, a few things that again, my kids aren't as old, but some things that I look towards to trying to building that trust is, you do everything you can for these kids, but you have to build their trust. So you have to praise them when they tell the truth about something, right? I do it for my 5-year-old kids. They're 11, 12, 13. Guess what? They're still learning as kids. If you praise them for things like telling the truth about something, that's good. That means, guess what? I can tell mom and dad the truth. Right? If they lie about something, we don't lie about those things, right? And again, your kids are a little bit older, you're teaching them not to lie to you about things. Modeling behavior, right? If we don't want our kids to lie, we shouldn't be lying to them. Now, of course, as every parent, there's always white lies we tell our kids about certain things, right? To protect them from certain stuff, right? Of course, well, I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about, real bigger lies, right? And us telling the truth. It's kind of, our parents' generation did a lot to try to protect us, right? But that was different times. right? That was Adam Walsh, right, who was abducted in the 90s, right? Megan's Law, who was raped and murdered by her neighbors, right? Because those were physical things. Now everything is online, so it's different, right? We can't just protect them from where they're going and who they're going to be in contact with, because, these phones give them that access to everything. So, modeling that behavior, right? It's like, if we want them to do these things, we have to do them ourselves, right? If that means you have to say, hey, I was sorry, I was wrong about something, then maybe you have to say that, because then that means they'll do that, model that same behavior. Hey, you know what? I was wrong about that, and I'm sorry that I, yelled at you about that thing. I was wrong. That goes much farther than, again, what our parents used to do. And anyone I know in early childhood education has told me, they're modeling those things from you. So, like, even if it's saying those things, that means they know they can come to you for those same things. Some other things, sometimes we talk about, like, adult infallibility, right? How many times I've told my kids, get in the car. Why? Because I said so, right? We've all done it, right? And a lot of times, we're right. But why do we say those things? If you take one more step and tell your kids, hey, listen, I'm your parent. My goal is to keep you safe, right? I went to this lecture about internet safety, so I want some things to talk to you about, because I'm here to keep you safe. If you sometimes just explain a little bit more to them as to why you're saying these things, right? And why you're telling them, no, you can't go out with your friends tonight. No, you can't do this. They're not easy conversations to have. But if you're doing these things, they know that it's not just because mom and dad are mean and I don't know why. Those conversations will not sink in at first, at all, right? But eventually they will. And it's going to click. And they're going to be able to see that, hey, mom and dad told me these things, and maybe that is something to it, right? It kind of lessens that, well, they're always right and I'm always wrong. So these are just some things, again, I'll tell you how to parent, but these are just things that, through my experiences, that I'm trying to do with my kids, things that I've learned through classes I've taken, and other experts I've talked to about what's the best way to communicate. Because the kids who report early have much, much less damage, even when they're young, like 11, right? The ones who report much later are now going through therapy, and they blame themselves, and then the parents blame themselves because they didn't realize what was going on, and they have their own self-blame. So I know these are very difficult conversations to have with them, and it has to be, not just once, right? You gotta have to find your way to keep repeating it, right? But those are conversations to have with them, and it's tough again, but trust me on this one thing, that is the most important. That early communication will save them so much of the trauma associated with it. And if there's, a lot of people here might say, I have a great relationship with my kid, and I'm sure you do. But if there's anything to double down on, it's this. That trust for your kid to come forward to you. That's the thing you do. You double down on this, of all things.
So just from my personal experience with
Yes,
my
please.
two boys, my oldest one, when he went to 6th grade, initially we weren't going to give him a cell phone, but his mother couldn't find him the first day. She had to pick him up, so I was going to get him a cell phone. So we had this little conversation. This is when I started getting into the sex crimes and the ICAPs. So I'm learning this myself as I'm handing a cell phone to my oldest son. And I had a little small discussion. I said, this is what you're allowed to do. Mom and dad is going to be able to look at your phone every night to make sure you're safe. That was the key word that we used. That you are safe. There are a lot of bad people out there, and we want to protect you. No problem. A couple of days later, I get a call from his mom saying, can you look at Brandon's phone? Because something happened, and it's making, he's having trouble, keeping it turned on, whatever. Long story short, he told his mom, some 7th grader told them, hey, can I borrow your phone? Like, they were next to a locker, can I borrow your phone? I just wanted to show you something. Turns out this kid went on a porn site, and that porn site just downloaded malware, whatever. My son had no clue. He was horrified. So he was scared to tell his mom at first, but then he didn't say anything until we approached him. And then I said, okay, let me talk to him, because this is when I started doing this stuff. I said, what happened? He told me the exact same thing. I said, okay, no problem. You didn't know what was going on, but what did we learn here, right? Don't give your phone to somebody that you don't know who that person is, even if it's your friend. could be innocent, they could accidentally, download something that could create a problem for your phone. So we had that conversation. And, then down the road, he was getting a little more independent with the phone, and he kind of was like hesitant to show me the phone. I said, okay, time out. Now we're gonna put some additional rules down. So I learned about this app called Guardian. I learned it through my captain at the time. He had it on his kid's phone. There's an app for the parent, there's an app for the child. Basically, it mirrors your child's phone. So you could access all the chats on your phone. You could lock their phone. You could see how long they've been on websites, on YouTube, and different apps. And I said, this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna have this until we have that trust where I could trust you that you're not gonna be hiding things from me or whatever. So both of my kids at that time had cell phones. He was in 8th grade, my youngest one was 6th grade. It was like a 5-year plan. It was like a little over $100. It was no brainer, but after like 2 years, we built that trust, and my kids came back. Well, actually, their mom reached out to me and said, they approached their moms, can you talk to dad, whatever. And you know what, it's time to take the app off.
And now they're older, right?
And they're much older.
Right.
And they're 18, 16, never been in trouble whatsoever.
And it's building that trust from like the youngest age you can with the phone to that age where they are much more mature, 17 was that mature, right? But more mature than like a 12-year-old or stuff. So it's the idea of consequences is tough, right? If somebody's reaching out to them, is that a consequence for them? Well, maybe we need to talk about safety. It's kind of one of those things where my mom, years ago, said like, I don't care if you told me you're not where you're supposed to be. If you're at some party or in a situation when you're not going to be, I do not care. You call me, I will come pick you up out of an unsafe situation. It's like the same thing just now with the internet, right? So just a couple more tips for when you're talking to your kid about having them be able to address these things, right? I've seen, maybe I'm a little proud of Gen Z. They have a lot of, I've seen a lot of kids when they're talking to them, they'll call those guys out. They call them creeper, pedophile, predator, all those things. They call them out on these apps, and guess what? That guy moves on to somebody else, right? Maybe they're a little bit older and they can appreciate that, but sometimes giving those tools like, hey, call the guy out, right? Don't let this guy do this to you, right? You're stronger than that. And you can say, call him a creeper, call him a pedophile, whatever you need to do to give them those key words to try to empower them to do these things. So a couple other things, kind of like that app you're talking about. Family sharing on Apple. So when you have this, you can look through it and it allows you to manage their screen time, that kind of stuff, where apps are downloading. But again, not everything's perfect. One of the other ones that one of our task force officers really likes is Bark. That monitors their devices. I think you get to actually the phone through them, but they have the same thing where you can monitor and mirror everything that your kid is on, all right? And they have laptops and computers as well. So that could be kind of part of that, kind of contract you set up, right? We're gonna do this, and the more you tell me things and you let me know these things, the more you're gonna get more freedom. So that's one that one of my task force officers likes. He has kids around this age too. There's a couple websites, so like let's say your child did send a bad picture, right? A nude photo, right? What can you do about that at that point, right? How can you react to those things? There's this one website, this is actually from the United Kingdom, it's stopncll.org. So every picture that you take has a hash value to it, right? It's like a DNA of the photo. And that thing is always on there. So we actually, a lot of the stuff, the CSAM we see has unique hash values, just like it's long digits and all this stuff, right? So you can submit to this website, it just takes the hash, it doesn't take the picture, right? So it just takes the data from that picture, and it sends it to places like TikTok, Facebook, Pornhub, right? And it sends it to these places so they know that this is a real child, all right? And I think NECMAC has the same thing as well. So you go through this, again, like this website, I don't know how to take a picture. There's also another one, Take It Down. I think this one is through NECMAC, if I remember correctly. Same sort of thing, and it helps generate that cyber report too, so we can investigate some of these things too. And it's actually at least something that if your kid doesn't, oh my God, you can't tell anybody, you can't do this, all right? Well, if at least if you put it there, they're doing something about it, right? They're taking some kind of steps and doing that. So that's very important. If something does happen, save the evidence. Please report it to the police, right? We will investigate these things. We'll do our best to try to work with you guys and make sure we do it in the best interest of your child as well. go to NECMEC website. They have a lot of great information and videos for parents, how to set up this kind of contracts and so forth. So yes, report.
What's that? What is next?
Oh, that's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Oh.
Sorry, this is just use all.
Actually, the CEO is John Walsh, the father of Adam
Yeah.
Walsh.
Yeah.
He's a big, he's the one that actually pretty much started this,
Yeah.
this agency. But I don't know if you guys noticed as far as the photos and stuff, but when you take a picture on your camera, it saves the location where the picture is taken. And if you upload it onto Facebook, although Facebook now, it's been for a long time, when they used to upload pictures, they would save all that, and you could just save the image, and somebody could upload to a website, and you could extract all that information, you know exactly where that photo was taken. What you could do is you could disable that on your camera location. But Facebook now, they learn, what they do is when you upload any pictures on Facebook, I'm sure other social media does it too, they strip, it's something called XF data, which is all the location information, the type of camera that was used, all that information is on that phone. So it strips it before it uploads onto the Facebook.
People can't locate you. Yeah.
So they can't locate you, they save it, but it's all called XF data, just like hash value was a DNA. That's how we track a lot of the CSAM images through the hash value, through the website, and that's how everything is, we can't like send photos out, because that's, we're committing a crime ourselves. So when we do something called the peer-to-peer cases where we're looking for people that want to share these images, we have softwares that only have the hash values, and it goes out to the internet world and looks for those same hash values. See, hey, who has this hash value? I'm looking for this image. We can't send out actual photos, and that's how we connect. Oh, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Justin said, I have that hash value. I'm going to send you those pictures. Now that we got the distribution charges going on. So it's important to disable that information on the camera, because I don't know what social media still does
And
that.
what app is different too?
Oh, every app is different as well.
So at this point, I open up for any questions, concerns, comments, things you might have experienced with your kids, situations, whatever it might be. I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't remember anything today, you guys have my email address. Just reach out, and I can reach out to Justin if you don't have his email, so you can reach out to either one of us.
Yeah, please reach out to me. Officer Tom is a great resource. He has the knowledge and experience. He's one of the original guys, quite honestly, in Jersey, who started a lot of this, and a lot of the, he has a lot of knowledge of this. So anything that you are concerned about, reach out to him too. Yes.
Do you have these conversations and like teach-ins, because this is very informative, do you have them in a version with our kids as well during school, like about internet safety?
So we're actually working on right now with the administrator, I'm working on with the administrator, trying to set up a date, like an assembly.
Yeah.
And we have, separate, not as graphic as.
Kid-friendly.
Kid-friendly.
What's different graph?
But, in a kid-friendly way, and it's in a fun way to learn and teach them. There's also websites that you could go online and you could just share, watch these safety tips with,
Kind of like the one I showed you.
with the kids and stuff like that. So, but we are currently working on, myself with the administrators at the school, to put something together to an assembly for the kids, for all 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades.
I'm sorry, ma'am, you had a question?
Any tips on internet searches? I know it's a Wild West, and there isn't much you can do to stop, but like, any limitations, or aside from just talking to our kids and saying, don't look up that thing, or don't get too curious and click on the wrong thing?
It's difficult because these are obviously developing years for kids.
Yeah.
I think if, sometimes like those apps that he was talking about, or, like you might be able to see some of those things that they're going through.
Yeah.
And, there's some things you might say, I'm going to address this, and some things you might say, I'm not going to,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of within your discretion, so it's tough.
Like a lot of kids, like especially even high school kids. So I did one of my first presentations while I was still working with the assistant prosecutor in Essex County that handles these type of cases, the prosecution. So we were talking about this high school in Livingston, and we had about every grade, like freshman, sophomore, I think it was like 15-year-olds and sophomores. We started doing the same presentation, and we're like talking about distribution. Hey, you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, you want to take a picture of yourself and try to impress them, and it's a new picture, send it to her. I said, legally, that's technically a distribution, even if it's your own image. We started looking around, and the prosecutor, she's talking to them, and I kind of look at the kid, their reaction. This one poor girl, she started sliding down on a chair, and got up, and just ran out, her face turned pale. So afterwards, we spoke to the principal, and we told him what happened, had a conversation with this girl. I have a feeling she did something like that, where she sent a picture of her body to probably whatever she likes.
Your kids are going to do
Yeah,
things that are, at least in their mind, wrong. Or they're going to think it's wrong, and it's how are you going to react to those things, right? And, you know, it's not like, hey, I just went up and punched a kid randomly in the face, so that, hey, there's severe consequence for that. It's different, right? These are, again, very big learning years for them. I think you had a question, sir?
Yeah, I was just curious about the communication apps.
Yes.
Some of them, like, there seems to be no traceability, or they delete after a day. Is there certain apps that like are not traceable, or you would not recommend your children to be on?
So, like, a lot of the ones like Telegram and stuff, some of these things we can get, right? And they might be able to pull it off their phones and those sorts of things. If you stick with like more standard messaging, like,
well, I think the biggest fear is really when you talk about, oh, Snapchat erases everything.
no, not true. We can
Not
get some of
true,
that.
it might be off the phone, but we could, Snapchat, actually now, from what I was told, they serve for a longer period of time
Yeah.
on the server. So we just know, once we find out the account, we send a court order, and, you know, we could.
So some of these things, and like there's some rules that have been changed recently about, for at least the US-based ones, right? US-based ones have harder rules, so they have to retain this data for a certain amount of time. But again, the earlier you report to us, the better, the more likely we are to get like the entirety of those data, if that makes sense. So,
Like Cake, I believe Cake, from what I remember, although they do have a
You get a lot.
US base, but they're a Canadian company. But I remember when I was attending a lot of the ICANN meetings, they actually had representatives from Cake come and speak to us, and they're very friendly on helping
yeah.
us, because that was a big platform when we were doing these chat apps. A lot of them were on Cake now. So they're really pro law enforcement for us, especially US. They actually have like a satellite office here in the US. I believe somewhere in California.
That's fine.
You were talking about starting these conversations with your children early, and I don't even know where to start.
It's hard, right? So I think it's really like, it's when they start gaining the most access to it, right? If it's like 11 or 12, right? If they start gaining whether it's through the computer there, right? You can even do simple things, right? If someone says something that makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Some simple words like that, let me know. Because there might be somebody on there that does it, right? Even if it's like maybe they're on a website or something, you know, that's, you know, you're monitoring a little bit more, right, than a messaging app. You know, I use a word like, hey, somebody being creepy, right? Because that's like a kind of a term, right? Something that they kind of use. You know, is anyone being creepy and stuff like that in there? Something like that, that's how you start opening up to it. And you kind of talk about it as, at least, the way I would try to do it, if you have some more examples, but you know, again, it's a privilege, right? We're going to do these things, and you know, and you have the opportunity to tell them, hey, you know, I'm mom. I just want to keep you safe. You know, there's bad guys out there, right? 11, you can use that term, bad guys out there. So we want to keep you safe from those guys, right? And you may be related to, you know, bad guys you see on TV, right? Well, they're online too, so we have to be careful, right? You know, you don't go talk to strangers in the middle of the store. Same thing on the internet. So you know, I want to do that. That kind of depends on the situation. But any opportunity you have to talk to them about, even if it's in little dribs and drabs, it's going to help. And it's going to build up to that point where, you know, they do get their phone, right? Hey, this is how it's going to work. We're going to have this phone that we monitor, right? To me, that's worth every penny. So.
From my experience as well with my own kids they feel more comfortable telling somebody else than a parent. They feel embarrassed.
Yes, that's right.
So, and I try to talk to kids here throughout the day all the time for different things, trying to get a feel, their mood. I can tell, like, you know, if a kid's happy one day, the next day he's not happy, I'll be like, okay, what's the matter? They don't really want to talk. I'll reach out to the counselor, hey, you need to talk to the student, something's going on. Maybe at home they're afraid to tell the parent, and they'll disclose to a counselor, an administrator, or myself.
Or like, you know, if you have like a 17-year-old older sister or something, like, hey, talk to your sister about these things. Or have, you know, if you have an older child or something who can like, hey, I can help them with that, right? Bring them in on it too, right? Or even, you know, their cool uncle or something, you know, anything. Just like the other person they feel more comfortable talking to, right? Because it's not always mom. So, all right. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. I very much appreciate it.
Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Justin, for coming out and helping us the back, thanks, Tom, appreciate it. I just want to, Justin, thanks again.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Thank you. So I just want to piggyback off what they're saying. When I started here, so I started in the city of Orange when I first got on the police job. When I started in Chatham in 2002, I thought it was awesome. We have the middle school, so we're not going to have anything to deal with. No issues. It'll be the high school. And it is the exact opposite. It is the middle school, their age, that with their personalities and the hormones, that are most likely to get themselves in trouble, either online, saying something in the hallways, posting something on a video game, saying something inappropriate. So this is super important. Brene Brown said it best, it's better to be uncomfortable than resentful. So have the uncomfortable conversation with your children now, because when the naked photos show up online, and I can tell you, in Chatham, it happens on a fairly regular basis, you're going to end up being very resentful that it's almost impossible to put a stop to it, to get those things back. So have the conversations now. Talk with your friends and your families. Make sure you're watching and monitor the kids' activity on the phones. We struggle with it with our own children. I know I do, but I'm pretty strict about it. On a regular basis, I ask my kids for their phones. My son's in college now, so I don't do it anymore. He's an adult. I've done my job at this point, but my girls, all the time. Let me see the phone. And whose phone is it? It's my phone. And I make sure they understand that.
So who's like the first call if you find something going down? Like,
So-
is it Chatham Borough Police Department?
Yes.
Is it, okay.
Yeah, we would likely be your first call, and then we work with the prosecutor's office and also with the state police, with technologies. We've worked with Secret Service. We've worked with Homeland Security. So depending on the nature of what happens, I can tell you, I can sit here for another hour and tell you stories from children as young as 11 and 12 and adults who have come in and say, as soon as we hear it, it's the typical thing. We talk some more private. I almost know already. I know already they posted something they wish they didn't post or posted, and now they're sort of, somebody is extorting them, either for money or something. The full gamut. It has happened here in Chatham many times, more times than I would like to admit. So we would be your first point of contact. Our detectives are pretty seasoned dealing with this. They deal with it on a regular basis. But they will reach out to the prosecutor's office especially to try to kind of clamp down on the messages that got out that should not have gotten out.
So this seems like the escalation at the county level of the local.
Exactly.
jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And then it also could result in potential, look, with kids who are doing this, we're not looking to charge children. I mean, in essence, right, sending naked pictures of a child under the age of 18, even if you're a child, it's illegal, right? What we're trying to do is just stop it, get those pictures recovered as quickly as we can, because I will tell you they make it around the schools very quickly. So we will work with them, and it could be on the recovery process or on the prosecution side.
Also, that website, that's everything. Anybody can report anything. It's just not, social media platforms that have, by law, they have to, you could, report a call, email them. I've gotten a lot of cyber tips where parents would email and then they would get filtered, Essex County, okay, Newark, or, West Caldwell, whatever. My child is saying this or this or that. Or if your child's afraid to tell you, you could introduce them to this website. Hey, whatever you want to tell, you don't want to tell me, you could tell them. You could do it anonymous. It's really not anonymous, because we'll find out eventually. We'll track it down, try to talk to them, but they might feel safer to anonymously report whatever they heard or did.
I also want to thank, Sleo Chung, Tommy Chung doesn't probably talk about it much, but he's got tremendous experience dealing with this for an entire career doing it. Hugh Ames, I want to thank Sleo Ames for coming also in the back. They're really vested in your child's safety, right? But where does that start? It starts at home. The safety starts at home, and they'll pick it up, we'll pick it up. The prosecutor's office will take the baton. We all pass the baton. We hope it doesn't make it to the prosecutor's office, right? So we hope we can nip it in the bud, but sometimes we have to do that. So if we're all working together, and you're nipping it in the bud, you're catching those uncomfortable, so something's weird. I mean, if your kid is that resistant to handing over the phone, you have to wonder why, you know. And
Better
it's-
safe than sorry. Kind of, might not be something big, but it could turn into something bigger.
Yeah, it really
Really
does.
quick.
It breaks my heart. It gets really ugly. It really does. And the sooner you do something about it, the better off you'll be. Not only for that moment, but for posterity, because, you know, these things, when they make it into some of these sites, there is no chance you're ever getting them all back. And it haunts some of these kids for a long time. So, you know, thank you for coming and for educating yourselves. Please share this with your friends. I heard the question before, we have done this before with the children. In fact, it was pretty rough. The prosecutor's office came down and they sort of pounded the kids about what they can and can't do, and it was interesting. They were a little mesmerized, and it was quiet for a while. And many of the kids recognized that they were doing some of the things that they were talking about. So we could do those events again. We're doing it with e-bikes. In fact, we're doing one for parents in a minute. And then we're doing it for the children as well, and e-bikes too. So we're trying to hit it from all angles, safety from every angle, and really hopefully, you know, everybody at home is doing their role, and we'll all be safer for it.
And if you have friends that couldn't make it tonight, it is being recorded tonight. And I don't know which platform, but we're gonna let the superintendent send out a blast email once it's ready and upload it to either the school district website or through YouTube with the school district website, so you could share that with your friends that couldn't make it tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. We're having an e-bike presentation. If anybody wants to know a little about it, you're welcome to stay.
Very simple band then.